We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. I'm Marty Pay and Clay Kerner, and our guest by phone is Sally Pipes, the president of the Pacific Research Institute.
Sally, as you know, one of the regulations that was passed back on September then was that groups that currently have medical benefits could continue those same plans and same benefits under what they call a grandfather plan program. But there's so many rules and regulations that require an employer to do certain things that I'm wondering, how can anybody maintain a particular plan and qualify under the grandfather legislation?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think this grandfather status sounded very good to a number of people, but very few plans are going to be able to, stay as they have been, because you can't make any changes to the coverage that you have. And a lot of employers, there is no employer mandate under Obamacare, but there is this issue that if you have 50 or more employees and you provide health coverage, but if you decide to that one or two people on that work for you, should get their health care through the exchange and get a subsidy from the federal government, then you will have to pay a fine of $2,000 per employee, not just for the employee that is, going to get their insurance with a tax subsidy in the exchange, but for all of your employees. And so a number of companies, of course, will say, well, it's cheaper to pay $2,000 per employee than to pay, $4,000 or $5,000 for an individual or $12,000 for a family. So they will want to drop their insurance and pay this fine. So much for the president saying, which he said over and over again, if you like your health insurance and you like your doctor, nothing will change. Well, a lot of companies, are changing. Some are dropping. Some are saying you have to pay a larger part of the premium. Some are saying that you're going to have to pay a larger copay. So when you make these changes, they're going to lose their grandfathered status, and this is really going to, I think, open up the healthcare system to, this is more expensive, and therefore we need to go down the path to a Medicare for all system.
And as you pointed out earlier, more and more employers are requesting a waiver to opt out of the required healthcare system.
Right, and of course, Kathleen Sebelius, she's very anti-health insurance company, and she said about last fall that any insurance company that increases its premiums by 10% or more, she is keeping a list because she considers those to be excessive and unreasonable, regardless of whether or not they're covering their costs. And so she'll keep this list, and when the exchanges are set up in 2014, she will decide whether or not these companies will be able to participate in the state-based exchanges. So this is really, making the insurance industry a regulated utility, with the government making the rules and regulations of what is an acceptable health insurance plan, who can participate. We've already seen Principal Financial drop their health insurance coverage for 800,000 employees late last year. They said we just can't afford to be in this business. Earlier this year, Aetna, a big insurer, national insurer, dropped providing individual coverage in the state of Colorado. So I think we're going to see a lot of insurance companies saying, do we really want to be in the health insurance industry if we can't make a profit? So the 2012 election is going to be very important. And if President Obama is reelected, even if the Republicans take back the Congress, President Obama would probably veto any repeal.
Mm-hmm. Sally, there was a program that was on your website. I guess it was Tom Graham talking on NPR with a number of other people, and one of the speakers was Dave Jones, our insurance commissioner here, and he was talking about Blue Cross postponing their rate increase, and he mentioned that their profit, I'd never heard this number before, but he said their profit is 8.8% return on investment. I thought, whoa, that's a pretty good number. So, he was alluding to the fact that, if they decide to have an increase with those kind of profit numbers, he was going to, do what he could to prevent that.
Deny it, yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any comment on that, or?
Well, that's Anthem Blue Cross is the WellPoint California program, and their national WellPoint's national return on investment is about 2.3%. So I don't know where he is getting that 8.9% number. Statistics are a lot like sausages. You like them a whole lot better if you don't know what went into them. And I know that Anthem Blue Cross is very, very concerned about what is going on in California. And, the state of California has already started to work on setting up the state-based exchange in the state of California, whereas other states, Alaska, Florida, and a lot of states, are not moving, Louisiana, are not moving forward with setting up the state-based exchanges. They're waiting to see what happens in the election of 2012. And, of course, and Alaska and Florida have also said that they are not starting to implement any parts of Obamacare, even though Judge Vinson issued a stay on that, the Florida ruling on the fact that the whole Affordable Care Act was unconstitutional.
Sure,
but there's a lot of pushback.
Sure, and that's smart to wait until at least the thing goes through the courts and see where it's going to end up. We're
Right, exactly.
We're having a conversation with Sally Pipes, president of the Pacific Research Institute, on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.
Sally, also here in California, Blue Shield just announced for their small group market, which is the 2 to 50 market, that they're putting off any rate increases for 90 days. They're waiting to see what's going to happen. Now, what are they waiting for? What's coming up in the near future regarding Obamacare that they'd be waiting for?
Well, I don't know exactly. I mean, I don't talk to people at Blue Shield, but certainly, I mean, that was very interesting. I mean, they introduced increases. They said would be anywhere up to 89%, which Blue Shield always says we're a nonprofit. Anthem Blue Cross is a for-profit company, and so we're much more in sync with the man in the street and keeping costs down. Well, they realized, even as a nonprofit, that you can't, add more and more people to the system and comply with all of these mandates, rules, and regulations, and not, introduce price increases. So I don't know why they made a decision to hold off. I don't know what's going on, but I thought it was very interesting. The head of Blue Shield of California is very much a supporter of a single-payer healthcare system, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, I find that extremely interesting too, and I'm wondering what the position of some of this nonprofit HMOs like Kaiser Permanente are in regard to a single-payer system, so they're sort of in the driver's seat.
Yes, well, I like to say, I want, instead of increasing the role of government in our healthcare system, I think very few people realize that 50% of our healthcare is in the hands of government today, through Medicare, Medicaid, state children's health, and the VA system. Obama wants to take over that other 50%, but we don't want to go down that path to single payer. But many people, as I say, the head of Blue Shield is a big supporter of that.
Well, who else? What other carriers are big supporters of a single payer system that you're aware of? Blue
Shield of California is the only one, but it was interesting that the AHIP, the American Health Insurance Plans, except for WellPoint, which really stood up against Obamacare, most of them were in support of Obamacare, and I think it was because the idea of the individual mandate, they thought we're going to increase our business because everyone's going to have health insurance. But now they're waking up to the fact what this means for their cost and their revenue, and so you're seeing pushback from these companies, just like we're seeing pushback from people like Howard Schultz at Starbucks and IHOP and a number of companies that were very much thinking that this was going to be the be-all and the end-all for achieving universal coverage and lower cost health care.
Being in the health insurance business and working with renewals on almost a daily basis, I'm seeing rate increases probably on the low side would be 8% in the small group and the medium-sized group, to the area of 24-25%. And in 2014, we're going to see another $8 billion in insurer fees, and by 2018, another $14.3 billion in additional cost to insurers just to be in business. This has got to impact rate increases in the future.
Well, absolutely. And when you look at in the private insurance market, the brokers and agents that sell insurance under this medical loss ratio, your fees are going to have to come out of that 20 or 15% administrative, costs that they're going to have to cover. So I think this is really, putting the pressure on insurance agents and brokers. And, it's really, it'll probably cause a lot of people in that business to get out of the business and lose their job because they won't be able to comply with that. So the NAIC, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, is, going to Sebelius to say, can we get a waiver from this provision, or can the fees paid to these brokers come not out of the administrative percentage, but maybe out of the other part?
We've already seen an insurance exchange in California that has came and failed.
Yeah. When we come back, let's talk about that, and let's talk about 2014. We're talking to Sally Pipes on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.